What's up, guys? It's Mott here alongside Josh Davis. Welcome to a little bit later, but a Wednesday Link Live here on, 2 weeks before the NFL draft, Josh? We're getting closer and closer. Not next Thursday, the Thursday after that. We're going to be live for round one, having a bunch of fun. Hope you guys are going to join us for that. How you doing tonight, Josh? Anything going on?
Doing well. Not anything crazy, and it's just a little bit of a dying down of just this time of year, as we've talked about, and everything else. There's not a ton of news, but there's a little bit. And right before we're going live here, looked like reading the tea leaves, and everyone who's reading the thumbnail or the title of this, unfortunately, the giant killer seems like the writing's on the wall if they're giving away his jersey number and everything that side. So it's disappointing, but it was probably not extremely unexpected based on the signings, the acquisitions, other people that they've already brought in, and the fact that you don't get a deal done so quickly. But yeah, Boston Scott, it'll be sad to not see him in the Midnight Green. We will say that.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the tweet right here as if I can get it up on our screen. Obviously, they're giving out the jersey numbers for all the players that they have signed over the course of the past couple of weeks. And while we already knew that there was going to be, 0 for Bryce Huff and 8 for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you now have a scenario where Davis Price is going to be rocking the number 35 from the running back perspective. That's, of course, Tyrion Davis Price, and 35 formerly Boston Scott. And that is kind of your indicator there that he is probably not going to be coming back with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Boston Scott has kind of mentioned this. He's hinted about it at Twitter. He famously had that tweet a couple of days ago, Josh, where he said, man, if I could just grow a bunch and be a defensive end, I too could get paid like Bryce Huff got paid a couple of weeks ago. And Boston Scott has done some incredible things for Philadelphia, but I mean, let's be real here, Josh. Last year, the writing was on the wall. They barely used him. I mean, a couple of years in the past, he was getting, 4, 5, 6 carries a game. This past season, there would be stretches where Boston Scott would do nothing. They wouldn't even give him the football. Now, that was kind of an overall offensive issue where they just wanted to run Kenny Gainwell. But the fact that Boston Scott, his number seems to be replaced, the writing is on the wall, they're not going to re-sign him because, again, if you're just joining us, he's technically a free agent, and the fact they're giving his number away is a pretty good indication that he's not going to be coming back.
Right. And definitely for the past history of, usually it's you kind of wait till the last second. Not that it's impossible, but usually with the Eagles, for sure, it's like, hey, we're going to save that number because so-and-so, that's their number. If we're trying to work something out, we're going to make something happen. They'll come back, they'll get the number. But yeah, we're unfortunately, again, to your point, I mean, I think it's more of just like that emotional investment, but not as much of the side of saying like, all right, well, it's Boston actually getting out there and getting snaps or reps because, even as little as he got last year, it was more than Rashad Penny. So, we could say that it was more than Rashad Penny. Not that was much, but with Saquon Barkley there, I mean, come on, like he wasn't really going to. And then you, of course, have Kenny Gainwell. So as far as like, is this a huge impact on the team? No one's going to say yes, but it is in terms of just kind of the morale and emotional investment because it's nice to see Boston on there. I mean, tons of the mic'd up videos and just all the other stuff that he seems like a very jovial, fun type of guy to have in the locker room. So I don't know, nothing major, but just again, as far as what it means to the Eagles organization, it will be strange to not see him here, but well wishes wherever he ends up. He probably did. I would love to see them in the same room together because to your point earlier about the Bryce Huff and like cloning himself and everything like that, there's so many similarities between those two. So you never know. Maybe he's just hiding out right there, but we'll see.
Of course, if you're just joining us, the other player who is obviously gone from the jersey numbers, which again is not a guarantee, but if you're an unrestricted free agent and they just gave away your jersey number, it's a good indication you're not coming back. You're seeing Julian Okwara will be wearing number 52. That was worn by Zach Cunningham this past season. And Josh, we forget that Zach Cunningham, A, was on the roster this past year, B, played a bunch, and C, has been a free agent for the past 3.5 weeks. So the fact that Philadelphia, who is very much a linebacker-needy team, even probably still today, has not brought him back on a very cheap one-year deal, I think, as we mentioned, the writing is on the wall here that Zach Cunningham, one of your other defensive starters, is no longer going to be here. And honestly, we wish him the best. I think he had moments, but if Zach Cunningham's your best linebacker, your linebacker depth chart is pretty bad. That's no offense to Zach Cunningham. It's just true. I mean, it just simply is very, very true. And I'm pumped for a season where Philadelphia's weakest link is not the linebacker position. I think it's going to be pretty good this year as long as Dean stays healthy and Devin White gets back to a couple of years ago, Devin White.
Absolutely, yes. Devin White is a huge piece of that. And to your point, if Zach Cunningham was a backup and, more just kind of the rotational piece or really just a reserve in that sense, then fine, whatever. But yeah, it's writing on the wall from this sense. Shout out to Anish David, a member for 1 month, who said here, draft season, let's go. And to that point, Maybe you draft a linebacker. Edgerrin Cooper
Maybe.
is obviously the first priority for everyone who's gone through mock drafts, and you see all the posts on Twitter and just really everywhere for Edgerrin Cooper. But really, name your pick. You have other guys out there, a Junior Colson, who would be awesome. And then even later rounds like a Cedric Gray from North Carolina. So I'm
Right.
hopeful that Howie at least invests in it somewhat with the long term. But again, with Devin White there, like he's got a lot to play for, and we've talked about it on a number of different shows. Like there's reason to be optimistic about him. Some people want to, bring up, yes, he's not been as good, but he recognizes that, and it's a different type of change from previously of going like, oh, hey, we're going to bring in a Shaq Leonard here. Like
Right.
this is a 26-year-old dude. Like this guy is not limited by athleticism. He's not limited by injuries really. Now he was a little bit banged up, but it's not a serious, significant injury. So he could come here. I'm confident he'll turn it around. Very excited to see what he does. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, without question, Nakobe Dean is Howie Roseman's guy. So, can he turn it around? Can he actually show something and stay healthy? The Eagles season is going to rely quite a bit on that. I'm not going to lie. It will rely quite a bit on Nakobe Dean and his performance.
It really is fascinating how different the roster can look 3 weeks from now, really. I mean, 2.5 weeks. But essentially, you get past night 2 of the NFL draft. Philadelphia has presumably 3 draft picks. They could have more. They could have less, depending on trades up and down. But you could see 2 new defensive starters. Like, if you imagine Philadelphia taking Cooper DeJean at 22, who had an incredible pro day, a private workout. We didn't get any footage of it, but from all scouting reports that were there, I mean, he absolutely balled out. Faster than Trent McDuffie in the 40-yard dash. 16 reps of 225 on the bench. I mean, he was really good. And for everyone saying, can he play corner in the league? He's extremely, extremely fit for the National Football League. If you land him at 22 and you trade up in the second round and get Edgerrin Cooper, you have 2 new starters on the defense. Now, are they starting 24/7 in terms of every single snap? No, but they're going to find ways to get on the football field. And this defensive roster, which again, we just talked about, better without Zach Cunningham when you replace him with Devin White. It's better with C.J. Gardner-Johnson back there whenever you replace the bevy of safeties they rolled out this past season, mainly Kevin Byard. It's better, hopefully, at cornerback with year 2 of Keely Ringo. Maybe revitalized James Bradbury, although, cross your fingers on that one. Darius Slay, potentially his final year.
Well,
and year 2 of Jalen Carter and year 3 of Jordan Davis. Like, there can be some big changes on this defense, and I'm excited to see what they can do just to make it better. Now, I pivot that by saying, Josh, you still believe, we talked about this last week, you still believe they're going offensive line with their number 1 overall pick, right?
yeah, as much as I don't want that to happen, if it realistically, I do think that it's going to be offensive line. So I would prefer it to be a defensive player. I've said this a number of times, but yes, realistically, if you look at Howie Roseman, you talked about it on your show, you brought it up. A lot of different people have been mentioning it within Twitter and everything else too, but like the canceling of visits or what's going on here. It's like a top 30 visit that is it happening? Is it not happening? Who knows what the full story is there, but it does kind of allude to the fact of like, okay, in the past, a top 30 visit was everything for the Eagles. And it's a lot for a lot of teams, but it was absolutely everything for the Eagles. So I think Anthony DeBono was the first one that I said or saw that brought this up, but it's like, hey, perhaps if Howie Roseman is looking at this and saying, well, maybe teams are actually going in there and saying like, is this giving away too much? The Eagles are for sure going to go off of those top 30 visits, and that gives them too much of a key into, okay, well, we don't need to trade up because the Eagles are going to get these guys. Perhaps. So if Howie Roseman goes, yeah, you know what, we have enough information on one guy, we don't necessarily need to bring them in for a top 30, that makes some sense. But it is curious because we've had, I think we're up to like 4 or 5 at least visits that were reported and then
5
backtrack.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see there.
Yeah, Anthony DeBono from Pro Football Network made a really good point. He said, the Eagles drafted 4 of their first 5 picks last year were all people who had top 30 visits. And Philadelphia has been very, very in on bringing you into the NovaCare complex, getting an in-person interview, an in-person private workout, and then drafting you. And it seems like Philadelphia, I talked about on my show today, are trying to mask a little bit on who they are, bringing in for conversations, because while a lot of people will say in the comment section Howie Roseman doesn't draft well, he still had some pretty darn good drafts. He's definitely nailed plenty of draft picks, and Philadelphia's front office has been one of the shining lights in the National Football League. They're one of the best. It's at least top 5. They're very much considered that by other people in the league, whether the fans believe it or not. And if you're sitting there as the Carolina Panthers, you're sitting there as the Detroit Lions, who PFN talked about, adding the top 30 visits to their little Twitter bookmark page. You want to draft better, you could look to Philadelphia and see who they're looking at to be a very good indication. They brought in a ginormous wide receiver from Florida State. They've been working out multiple offensive linemen. 7, I think, is the number right now. Double the next amount for position group cornerback. They've met with 4 people so far that we know of at the NovaCare complex. They're really doing their due diligence. And to start the conversation, we mentioned offensive line and cornerback. Those seem to be 2 pretty darn good indications that I would bet would be the first round for Philadelphia if we were betting on it right now. Although, Josh, I do want to mention, you and I are doing something pretty interesting here for the NFL draft. We're trying to change things up. So last year, we gave away a bunch of jerseys during the NFL draft, and if you were super chatting, you could go ahead and get in on the action. We're changing it up, though, to have it a little more interactive. So right now, we're doing an NFL draft league, and the person who wins this NFL draft league, which I'll explain in a second, is going to get a jersey. And then we're also going to give away another jersey randomly to anybody who joins the league as well. To join, just send a Venmo to @ThePhillySpecial. Josh and I share that Venmo, but it's Josh's name, but it's still both of our Venmos. Drop a Venmo there. $1, 1 entry, obviously multiple dollars, multiple entries, as we talked about before. That gets you into getting the jersey raffle, but it also gets you into the fun. If I could put this on the screen, there we go. It gets you into the fun of our NFL Draft League, where you try and predict the first round of the NFL draft, which is basically impossible, but our little draft league that Josh has built is going to tell us who actually gets it as close to being right as possible, and that person is going to get a Eagles jersey of their choice. So if I can show this on my screen here, Josh, let me make sure I have this thing pulled up. It's going to look something like this. He does it via the Office Football Pool, which is right there, and you are going to have a chance to go pick by pick. It's multiple choice, and try and figure out who's the first pick, the second pick, the third pick, the fourth pick. Again, it doesn't link to the actual team. It's just the pick, and it's going to be multiple choice. And if you drop a Venmo, we can get you the link to go ahead and sign up and join our league. And then the winner, whoever gets close enough, is going to go ahead and get a jersey. And then we're also going to do the same kind of drawing that we've done before, where $1, 1 entry, $10, 10 entries. It all aggregates and grows via the Venmo, and then we draw the jerseys. Did I get that right, Josh? We've been talking about this for the past couple of days. I think I nailed it, right?
You nailed it. Yes, absolutely. And I didn't realize or didn't think about this, but I will have a link in the description. I'm going to work on that here in a second. But for people watching it back, it will be there now as you're watching it, but a link in the description for the Venmo. So if you want to send it after the fact, that works too. But yes, this is going to be exciting. As you can see too, I mean, just with the screen share, it's impossible for us to know who it's going to be. So there's 3 options on just about every single pick, and then there's an other option. So, you know, maybe your odds are better to use some others on some of those, but on others it may not. But yeah, good luck to everybody, and figure this would be a good way to interact with you guys on draft night, because we'll be seeing who actually has the picks correct. And then, as Thomas said, we'll draw for some jerseys as well for anybody who enters. So good luck to everybody.
And obviously, we want to make sure we talk about the draft 24/7, and Josh and I are going to have our picks too, so you get to compare to see if you beat Josh, if you didn't beat Josh. It's going to be a bunch of fun myself as well. If you don't have Venmo, you should get Venmo. I mean, Venmo's how we're doing it, so you're going to have
we can do Cash App. For people, I see the comment from Taekwon. Do you have a Cash App? That's the only other thing that I can think of just off the top of my head. I've got a Cash App, so if you got that, let me know. I'll drop it in the description too for people watching it back, or even right now. I'll drop the Cash App. We can do that.
And we're going to be adding this to our descriptions for the next couple of shows. So obviously the Venmo's on your screen right now. It's very simple, but it'll be in both of our description boxes as well. So jump in on it. It's going to be a bunch of fun. We'll talk a little bit more about it a little bit later on the show tonight. I did see a super chat. We want to get that comment up on the screen here from Justin, who says, who are your top picks at guard and tackle in the draft? I like Zach Zinter, from Michigan, and guard Javon Foster from Missouri. For tackle, would be Lane Johnson's replacement. Josh, there are a ton of offensive linemen. This is the offensive lineman draft, and which makes sense why a lot of people think they'll go offensive line at number 22 overall, just because if you need to get Lane's replacement this year, you'd want to do it this year versus next year. This year's a lot stronger of a class. These names are all really, really good. They love the guy from Washington, though. They met with him multiple times. They feel like he is definitely plug-and-play ready to be our starting right tackle or even a guard if they need to. There are a lot of offensive line names Philadelphia can go ahead and throw around, and Zinter from Michigan is really, really good.
He is. He really is. I would say, and I'm actually siding here with Michael H., who's throughout. I like Cooper Beebe. Personally, if I got to go with someone, it's probably Cooper Beebe as well. Zinter's injury, he's probably going to be fine coming back from the injury, but still there's question marks on my side. But really, just looking at the tape and the film that I've watched, also some breakdowns from other scouting reports, if you if you want that physicality, that just I don't know, that dude who's just nasty as a guard, I would go after Cooper Beebe. So I don't necessarily say you could go wrong with his Zach Zinter, but personally, I would rank it a little bit higher for a Cooper Beebe. Again, I mean, we could talk all day till we're blue in the face about really any prospect, and then all of a sudden we look back and go like, 50-50 at best for like how we hit on these prospects. But I mean, heck, it's Jeff Stoutland at the end of the day. So really, whoever you go with, I'm pretty confident that he can turn those into a good starter, a solid player.
Right.
But it'll be interesting because, we've talked about it a number of times, and I really believe that if you're going to go and take an offensive lineman, it really should be a guard, but certainly someone who has that flexibility to play guard and tackle. So you start him out in guard this year because I don't think that you have your starting guard, and then maybe you shift them out to the right tackle once, Lane Johnson decides to hang him up and go to the WWE, which seems possible after, his whole spurt there in WrestleMania. That was pretty cool. Are you I don't think we talked about this or even texted actually, which is weird, but are you WWE fan at all? Like
never was.
I'm not.
Never watched it growing up. I watched the highlights of when Lane and yeah, I'm really not. I did love the video of Jordan Mailata going crazy when they brought John Cena out. Like, I understand how big of a deal that is, even if I don't watch the WWE. But I mean, geez, it feels like our generation is a little bit older, are the guys who are really the OG WWE fans, and you could tell they were protecting Lane Johnson a little bit there. Kelce got to kind of swing some chairs. Lane didn't do much, but overall, it was a good time.
Yes, that was a blast. I like I say, I'm not either, but for the fact that it was in Philly and you knew that Kelce and Lane probably were going to be involved, it was like, okay, I might watch a little bit, we'll see. But yeah, it was very cool. You're able to get the script writers can get someone who's retired versus someone who's still got games to play and, look ahead, involved a little bit more. So probably smart on their part. But DKT with a $5 super chat. Appreciate it, man. Says Troy Fautanu or Cooper DeJean in the first round, and I'll be satisfied.
The Eagles would be too. The Eagles like them both.
I think you have to trade up for either of those, though. Really, I mean,
you think so?
It'd be unlikely to me. After his pro day, probably. I think it was less likely after the pro day because the injury concerns and everything else. But I mean, he had to check every box, right? Like if you're a team and you're going, because he's getting all these top 30 visits, which makes sense, right? The medical staff is going to bring him in, get their doctors to look at him, say, okay, do we have questions here? Or is he good to go? The last thing they needed was saying, all right, are there any limitations? We know you're an athlete, but are there any limitations to these drills or anything else that you could do? And he had to have answered all those questions. So in my mind, I'm like, the versatility, the weapon that he is, I get that, some people are like, well, he's not a full-blown corner. He should be a safety, or he's, should he stay at corner? I mean, he's a game maker. I mean, he is a playmaker waiting to happen. It's the versatility like we talk about, and certainly in today's NFL. So I don't know. I mean, Fautanu is for sure. I think you got to trade up, but honestly, I would say DeJean too. You got to trade up and go get him.
Well, and the Eagles love people that test off the charts. I mean, Nolan Smith was drafted for his combine workout. I mean, truly, he was drafted for his combine workout because he blew them out of the water. And DeJean was incredibly fast. And that kind of leads me into this question from Ease of Football. It's not a super chat. He says, would you be happy with Nate Wiggins? He's someone who's mocked a lot to Philadelphia. I don't think you and I have talked a lot about Nate Wiggins. The kicker with him, though, is speed. A guy ran a 4.2 at the NFL Combine. He's 6'1". I mean, he is the definition of being the right size with the combined speed. He's like Ringo was big and Ringo was fast, but Ringo's a lot thicker than Nate Wiggins. Wiggins has a lot more length in terms of the arms. He's a little bit taller than Keely Ringo, and he's a little bit faster too. He would be an excellent pick at 22 overall, and would be a really safe option, Josh, if Philly just wants to just stay put, best player available, who's not an offensive lineman, and let's just get better on defense. And Nate Wiggins would 100% do that for the Eagles, whether he starts this year in for James Bradberry, or he waits a couple of years, you put him and Ringo after Slay's gone. It would not be a bad pick. He's incredibly fast.
He is, he's blazing. Eyes of Football says, I'd rather get Nate Wiggins than Tyler Guyton. I think there's probably a lot of people that would agree with that.
Probably so.
Tyler Guyton's, potential, and Lane Johnson has mentioned a number of times of how he loves Tyler Guyton's game. He's got a lot of potential there as a replacement and things like that. But to your point, I mean, the only knock or the continual knock that I've seen, shout out to Tyler Wallace. I don't think he's here. I haven't seen him pop up yet, but he loves Nate Wiggins. How many times he said on different live streams and comments and everything else for the videos. But Wiggins, he has a lot of potential. The only thing that people continue to try to bring up, and it's fair, like I understand the physicality or the size. You look at an Emmanuel Forbes and how he was torched. And, the question was, hey, very slight frame. Now, sometimes it's an issue, sometimes it's not. But I think if you look more so at Wiggins and watching his game, I just don't know that it's as much of going to be as much of a factor or a fair comparison, even of saying like, okay, well, just because that guy had that issue, it's going to be the same here. So, again, it remains to be seen. And a lot of it is luck or chance, certainly with the corner position. I mean, go back and look at, all these different drafts and saying, you say, hey, that guy's going to be a stud, turns out to be a bust. Hey, that guy's doesn't have a chance, he turns out to be a stud. So it goes both ways. But yeah, if you just sit there at 22 based on mock drafts and different reports and everything else, it does seem a lot more likely if you're going to go corner that Wiggins would be available. And I wouldn't hate it. That would be great. I still, for just about everyone, it seems like the consensus is if you go with a corner, it's got to be Quinyon Mitchell. But then we go back to the whole idea of then you have to trade up. And with the draft picks where they're at,
right,
does it seem likely that Howie's going to give up draft capital to move up in that situation and then not necessarily hamstring yourself with the remaining picks, but it almost seems like, okay, if you trade up there, then it's like a for sure you're trading back. Like with one of the second round picks, I can't imagine you're, let's go ahead and take 50 and 53 or 51, 53 and then say, well, let's wait until, what is it, like 161 till the next one. That it's just an eternity at that point.
I'm seeing people mentioning, what is this, DeVonta Smith, 10-year, $200 million. Trust me, yeah, I don't know if it's going to be like that. I don't know if it's going to be that crazy.
$200 million.
Maybe.
I mean, he's hoping for that.
Sure.
Fully guaranteed, sure. I bet too, right? It's go ahead and give it $200 million.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. Go ahead.
I'm just curious here. This is only the first comment that I've seen, but a little creepy. Says, Josh, can we get the audio balance between you guys one day? I hope. Does anybody hear that?
Does that mean that are you louder or quieter than me? I've never noticed this. Let's see if we get any comments.
I mean, I can hear you okay, but if anybody else knows or you can tell, let us know. We'll try to work on it. So
okay, I'm adjusting your sound level here. I'm trying to adjust your sound level here.
Yeah.
So
we can get this figured out. We do appreciate
let us know in
the
feedback
and the comments from you guys.
Yeah, we need you guys to tell
there
us.
Was another comment earlier too, just talking about the giant killer, getting back to the Boston Scott scenario and everything else. But Cindy Newsom actually said this a second ago. But it was the new giant killer is Saquon Barkley, which that's fantastic, really, because I mean, give them a dose of their own medicine. Say, hey, you remember this guy that you didn't even offer a contract for? Well, yeah, he's the new giant killer. So I'm good with that.
Someone just said Thomas is louder, but Thomas talks louder naturally. That's a good point. My voice is much naturally louder, so that could be it. Maybe I got to turn myself down a little bit here.
I could try to talk
sounds good.
Louder though.
No, my voice is just naturally louder and annoying. See, and this says Josh is always louder and clearer, even though we have the same microphone. So, who knows? I'll have to play this back and listen and see what it says. Thomas' mic is more full, whereas Josh's mic is more shut. We're getting very, very mixed signals here on what our mics sound like. I feel like it's some say good Josh, some say bad Thomas. So, all right, is what it is.
There's probably a good middle ground between that then. If it's all over the place, then some people are all right with it. Colin Dempsey says DeVonta Smith. I was going to say 4 years, 22 to 25 mil. About right. That seems realistic.
The only problem with DeVonta Smith, and there was a report from ESPN's Tim McManus talked about on my show today, saying that they are actively engaged in contract talks, which we knew that they were doing that. But he said that, they're engaging in contract talks. If you think they were going to push it to the fifth-year option, it's probably not going to happen. The only issue here is going to simply be the fact that do you pay him more than A.J. Brown? Because A.J. Brown makes $25 million a year, but that contract is 2 years old. And the way the market goes, the cap space gets bigger. Inflation, for instance, is happening right now. I don't know how much of a factor that is. But do you pay DeVonta Smith more than A.J. Brown? Conventional wisdom says no. But DeVonta Smith's argument is take A.J. off this team, and you do pay me $25 million a year. It's not my fault A.J. Brown's on this team. You want both of us. You got to pay me like I'm a number one. And honestly, maybe rightfully so. I think he definitely has an argument there. And so do you pay him 26? Does that make A.J. Brown upset? The sweet spot for me is 23.5. But again, I'm not, DeVonta Smith. If I offer me $23.5 million, I'd be very excited. But if you can get $25 million, Josh, then, you got to try and get your bag, right?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, you can't knock him for that. To me, it's like, I think that he will go higher than A.J. Brown, and I think it's well warranted.
Yeah.
To the point of the inflation and the idea of, hey, the cap continues to grow and everything else, like, it's just the part of the piece of the pie, really. And, of course, I've got some dogs barking in the background for those that can
Dog.
hear that. But,
Yes.
but still, like, you look at DeVonta Smith there, to your point, like, he's earned it. And yes, whenever it's time for AJ to come up for a contract extension, then he would probably naturally vault over DeVonta Smith, because that's how this whole thing works. I mean, heck, even if we go back and look, I know it's not exactly the same fair comparison, but still, like, Jordan Mailata is the fourth highest paid tackle in the league. Like, he
Right.
just jumped Lane Johnson. Now, would you say that Jordan Mailata is better than Lane Johnson?
No.
Maybe. Like, he's getting there, but not fully yet. And
Right.
so over the last couple of years, it's like, yeah, but we're paying for what he is now versus whenever Lane got his contract done. So I think that most people understand that, optics wise, and, media controversy and everything else people wanting to stir up might go, oh, but, AJ's not going to be okay with that. So Howie's got to be able to tiptoe around this and everything else. I'm pretty sure, I mean, this is just me speculating as well, but I'm pretty sure that AJ Brown's going to be like, cool, like, good for you. I get the whole idea. When it's my turn for a contract extension,
Yeah.
we're going to vault that. So I don't think it's really a big issue, but it does bring up a fair question. I mean, how much does DeVonta Smith get, and does that impact anything there within the locker room? I just can't really buy that.
Let's go to this comment here from Jose Delphia. It's a good name there. Between Latu and Guyton
Jose,
at
what's up?
22, who you pick? I think Josh can answer this one. Josh, we know who you would prefer of this one, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it's a given for most people, but Latu, if he's available at 22,
Yeah.
that's a steal.
Big
Something
if.
happened. Something happened very wrongly if he's there at 22. Like,
Right.
Tyler Guyton will probably be solid as a pro, but Latu, I mean, he's been, and I did a show about this talking a number of times, but, like, he's been, as far as pass rush win rate, is between the Bosa brothers. And if you look at the pass rush win rate, that means a whole lot more normally than anything on sack totals. You can't necessarily go off of that. So his ability to win as a pure pass rusher, the impact that he makes now, athleticism score, it's not quite up to the level of sometimes of Howie Roseman going, oh, hey, we're going to go hit the 90th percentile of an athletic player, but it's serviceable, like, it's doable. But you see, like, all the array of pass rush moves that this guy has, it's totally different from, again, like, I love Nolan Smith, but I'll throw this out there. Nolan Smith is very raw. Like, he does not have these pass rush moves, where Latu comes in and it's like, man, automatically he can be a game changer and a game wrecker. So I think that, 22, it's probably a given. I don't know if there's anybody in the comments who disagrees and believes it's Tyler Guyton, but yeah, I'd love to hear the argument, I suppose, if there is.
I mean, the big key, and I say this once a live show just because I want to just make it an emphasis, because it's a really big deal. Quarterbacks are going to push people back. And on a non-heavy quarterback draft, Latu's a top 12 pick, guaranteed. He's probably a top 10 pick, guaranteed. But in this draft, where you will see 5 quarterbacks inside the top 10, 4 inside the top 5, it's a guarantee. I mean, you're going to have 5 minimum picks that get pushed back. And Latu could be one of those guys that's there at 17 or there at 15. And if you're at that number, Howie Roseman's traded up in 4 of the last 5 first rounds. He's been very, very interested in going up to get the player that he believes makes an instant impact on this defense or this offense. And if he gets pushed back, then there's a real possibility that could happen. Now, Brock Bowers was just brought into the chat. You and I have not talked about Brock Bowers yet. I want to do that in a second. First, though, I do want to mention the fact that we are doing something different for the jersey this year. If you're just joining us, we are doing an NFL Draft League, which is going to be a ton of fun, where you can try and guess the first round of the NFL Draft. And to get in on the fun, you just got to send a quick Venmo to @ThePhillySpecial. See it on your screen. It's in my description box. It's in Josh's subscription box, or description box. I can't get my words right now. $1, obviously, one entry. Multiple dollars, multiple entries. We're going to give away whoever wins this one gets the jersey, and then we'll randomly draw as well. And so Venmo was the way to go. We figured out it's the easiest way to keep track of all this, and so Josh is going to add that into our list. But drop a Venmo to get into our NFL Draft League. And the Draft League, if you're wondering, it looks something like, let's see if I can get it on the screen. It looks something like, that's not it. 1 second. Let's make sure we got it here. My computer's messing up. There, it looks like this. So you'll be multiple choice picking whichever ones you think is correct, and whoever gets the most right, you're going to go ahead and win whoever the Eagles take in the first round, which could be Leitu Latu. It could be an offensive lineman. It could be somebody else. So we're going to have a bunch of fun with that. You guys have not joined us yet. Venmo is the way to go. And I think Josh is going to put his Cash App in his description as well if you don't have Venmo. And people are saying that. So
yes. Yep.
yeah, and if you want a different jersey, it's whoever's jersey. If you want Saquon Barkley's jersey, that's fine. Last year, we just gave away a bunch of Jalen Carter jerseys because Jalen Carter is the way to go. So, is what it is. Before we get to Brock Bowers, we have a super chat from Shizo Flex who says it's a possible pick up Smith's option, then extend him. So essentially, it's a 6-7 year deal. First 2 years still being a rookie deal. No, technically not. If you were to go ahead and pick up his option, he then either plays the 5th year or you extend him. As soon as you extend him, it starts that year. So if you pick up the option and then the next day extend him, the contract that is the most recent is the active one. So, it would just not be possible. But, it is what it is. Brock Bowers, Josh, quickly here. I do want to mention Brock Bowers because I've seen a lot of people in my comment section mentioning him. I want to talk about him on my show tomorrow. It's a fascinating idea. And again, great player, great talent. He'll be there in the teens. I've seen a lot of people say that they want to go out and get Brock Bowers. I don't see how you feed him in this offense. I don't see how you have enough mouths to feed unless you want to make him your true wide receiver 3, Josh, and basically run 12 personnel the entire time, but have Bowers split in the slot like he did a lot at UGA, which again is fine, but for a first-round draft pick, the Eagles just have so many other needs. They don't need another weapon. Like, the fact that he brought in it was Johnny Wilson, right? It's either Williams or Wilson. I'm blanking on the FSU guy.
Wilson,
It's Johnny Wilson. 6'7", later round draft pick. He's probably a day 3 sort of guy. That's who you take to be your wide receiver 3. That's who you bring in to compete with Paris Campbell and to compete with Devontae Parker. You don't need Brock Bowers. I honestly am getting off the Xavier Worthy train. I did shows on him, months ago where I was like, Xavier Worthy, he'd be fun in this offense, and he would. But at some point, Josh, you can only have so many weapons, and Bowers needs to go somewhere that he's really actually needed in an offensive needy sort of situation, whereas Philadelphia might have the best offense in the league as it currently stands.
I totally agree. Yes, I'm right there with you. Pete Nathan, though, says only guy worth moving up for is Brock Bowers, so he's on that train. He's a good talent, but to your point, again, it's like, there's only so many mouths to feed. Right. And with the way that you've already invested in this group, I get the whole notion of, hey, Dallas Goedert is the same, or actually he's older than Zach Ertz was whenever we drafted Dallas Goedert. So sure, you know what? If we go draft a tight end in this draft, it's not going to surprise me, but it's not the luxury pick to me that we can afford to say, hey, we're going to trade up and go get a tight end who's going to start out as our backup. Now he could play a lot. You could get a 2 tight end personnel, utilize a different scheme of the offense or whatever. But the options that you already have on this team, to me, it doesn't make as much sense. You say, hey, you know what? We've got other holes. Again, like we're talking about, offensive line, right guard, cornerback, linebacker. Yeah. There's a lot of the defense that we've mentioned here, even an edge rusher too. I mean, hey, if Leitu Latu's there, that seems more of a likely trade up than going after a tight end. So it's fun. It would be exciting because you just keep adding more elements to this offense. And I know that this league is continuing to get more and more of offense wins championships, but still, like at the end of the day, you have to look at it and say, Dallas Goedert is there. If you get your second option here and you spend that much to trade up and get a guy, I mean, like we're getting in the comments all the time, like this dude needs to be everything, not just hey, he can be a dynamic weapon in the passing game, but like he needs to be able to block and he needs to be able to be counted on in a lot of those different situations because you have Saquon Barkley, and that would be a question here because he doesn't really have the best. I mean, watch his film or just watch the ability that he has there. Run blocking could be a question, could be an issue on that side. If I'm going to trade up, in my mind, I got to say to myself, there are no limitations for this player. I know that's, that may be crazy because you have first round picks, you still don't know for sure, but we're at 22. And if you go trade up for a top 10, that's really kind of like a top 5 guy because we've mentioned it a number of times of how many quarterbacks are going to go off the board. You almost have take your pick. And it just seems like a little bit too high of a price to go after for that guy. So we'll see. The hope would be honestly that I think that the Giants were at his workout, and was it the Jets? Were the Giants and Jets? I think the teams that were there. It would be cool if the Giants wasted a pick. I say waste. He'll be really good, but still the holes that they have in their organization, you go after a tight end. But yeah, I can't imagine it. There's other options, I'd say.
Mason Jackson with the $5 super chat. What's your thoughts on Peyton Wilson, the NC State linebacker? I think he fits Fangio's system better, but Cooper is the better linebacker. Yeah, drafting for system versus drafting overall skills are always really hard because, is Vic Fangio going to be here for 10 years? You want your linebacker to be here for 10 years. Edgerrin Cooper just seems so plug and play ready right now, Josh. He just feels like you put him in this defense with Nakobe Dean, with Devin White, and he's just gonna fly. It's just gonna work. If there was a guarantee, and it's always impossible to guarantee because it's the NFL draft, but if it felt like there was someone you could just plug in immediately and be like, this kid's ready to rock, Edgerrin Cooper feels like the guy. And whether that's right or not, remains to be seen. Nothing against Peyton Wilson, and if you could get him because someone wanted Edgerrin Cooper in round 1 and then he's not there in round 2, then it is what it is.
Yeah. I'm with you. I continue to say it in every one of the mock drafts. It's almost impossible for me to. I know this is crazy, but a lot of people are in the same point. But it's almost impossible to me as whenever I do the mock draft, as soon as we get into the second round, I'm like, I and Edgerrin Cooper. And it's okay, if I need to trade up, we'll do that. But if I go and all of a sudden I make it to the Eagles draft pick there at 50, then hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and immediately take it. There's without question the most obvious, blatant choice in my mind. Now the question is does Howie Roseman do that, or does he decide, hey, depending on what we take in the first round there, is that an offensive lineman spot? And we'll figure out the linebacker whenever we get later in the rounds, or, if we miss out on one, there's a couple other options there. I don't know. You still want to look at the top 30 visits are important. They're not everything, but you lean towards that position. But again, like the comment from Mason is like Peyton Wilson. Sure. I think he's got a lot of talent.
Sure.
It's too much for me. And there's I don't know, double standards and double-edged swords to all these things here. But it's like the injuries and the potential risks there are not worth going for a Peyton Wilson, certainly over Edgerrin Cooper. But I would honestly say, in my mind, Junior Colson would be my second. Like Peyton Wilson would be third, probably in that category. And it's just really because of the injuries. I could be dead wrong, and Peyton Wilson could be very sturdy and healthy and everything else. But I just have to say, for the injury history and what the Eagles need with their fit, Junior Colson is probably the second option there on that side. Again, you do bring up a good point of like, hey, Fangio may not be here for eternity. He may not be here for a long time, but the overall scheme and the way that the Eagles have built this defense seem to rely strongly on that type of Fangio scheme. And so again, you go back to that and say, yes, Edgerrin Cooper, and I think most everyone's mind is the first pick there. And then my preference and opinion is Junior Colson, but I can totally understand it because there's a lot to like with Peyton Wilson, and the fact that he plays incredibly hard. He's made a lot of plays happen. And obviously, again, the athleticism just tests off the charts. So I don't think you can go wrong there. But yeah, my 2 cents from where I'd lean, at least for the linebacker spot.
Justin said, donated Thomas. Want to show Josh appreciation. I bet Josh appreciates that. But also wondered, what are your thoughts on James Williams, safety from Miami? He's 6'5", could possibly use him as a real prepper to be a hybrid safety / linebacker. What are your thoughts on hybrid safeties, Josh? There was a big run on them like 3 years ago. Whenever the Jabril Peppers draft was really like the get your hybrid safety because he can play linebacker. And really, it's just kind of turned into like, can you play the box and can you cover? Like, you're not going to beat the linebacker position. We're not going to have you kind of roaming as this rover. And it was the old UT defense. They called it the rover, who would be kind of this hybrid safety, hybrid linebacker. But do you like the idea? Do you hate the idea? What do we know about this guy from Miami, if we do know anything?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I've not watched much, if any. It's really just from, I guess, perhaps a little bit of Cameron Kitchens, quite honestly. So not 100% sure on that side. I'm going to have to look into it. But yeah, I mean, just in terms of the general hybrid safety dynamic there, I don't know. I mean, I've kind of gone back and forth on it because with the Legion of Boom, right? Like that was the thing. You get these bigger, more athletic, stronger players and everything else, but it's a copycat league, and eventually it's like, okay, you catch up and figure out, okay, this is how we beat that. And so it's not like it can't ever work, and there's a cycle that it just continues to kind of revolve, eventually get back to a certain standpoint. But in my mind, it's like, look at the dominating teams with the safeties that they have, and there is some hybrid playmaking ability, but I would just be curious because from what I'm pretty sure, I could be totally off because again, I've watched very limited on this, but I don't know that he has the best athleticism. So size is great, but like if you don't pair that with just fluidity and athleticism, it becomes more of a question mark and maybe even more of a detriment because it's like, hey, you do have that size, but if you can't make up for it, then I guess it's the alternative to like a Johnny Wilson, for example. We were talking about him earlier, but the wide receiver that the Eagles brought in, I mean, that dude's 6'6", 6'7", 230, and he ran just about as fast as AJ Brown in the 40, and then he jumped higher than AJ Brown. Like that's insane. That's unbelievable. Now I know he doesn't
Pretty
have
good.
quite the fluidity, but like that's ridiculous. You should not be
Yeah.
doing that at his size. And so I don't know. I will have to. I appreciate it, Justin, the super chat. I'll have to watch more film on him, quite honestly, but I don't hate the idea of a hybrid, certainly within a Fangio scheme, because you can move them all over the place, and I think that's why
Mhm.
Cooper DeJean would fit so well. But I don't know 100% about Williams. I have to watch more film on him.
Yeah, hybrid safety, who's a linebacker safety, is different than safety corner, and DeJean I think is a little more that than the whole hybrid linebacker safety. When you're saying hybrid safety linebacker, he's
For
probably
sure.
too slow to be a safety, but he's too big to not be a linebacker, and so you try to fit him in this little square peg in a round hole. It's tough to do. Cap Benson says, can we just keep the main thing the main thing? I think Jalen Hurts would appreciate that. He says, extend DeVonta already, preferably before JJ gets his contract, and save us some moolah. Well, I agree, and I really feel like if you can get it before CeeDee Lamb's extension, you're going to feel much better about yourself because, as we saw today, Josh Allen, who was, someone Eagle fans were throwing around there. I think you and I both mentioned him on our shows as, hey, if he's that upset, why don't you come to Philadelphia? And then they gave him $88 million guaranteed, and you're like, oh, well, that's why the Eagles
A
didn't
little
trade for him
much.
because it's insane. But that drives the price up. And Reddick's price, whether the Jets are going to extend him or not, is going to go up because of it. Because he can make the argument, I've been doing it longer than Josh Allen, more consistently than Josh Allen, blah, blah, blah. The same goes for wide receiver. If CeeDee Lamb gets $28 million a year, Smitty has to get $28 million a year. What's your argument? You're not as good as CeeDee Lamb. Do you want to tell DeVonta Smith that? Because I don't think he believes it. I don't think most Eagle fans would believe it. So if you get the deal done sooner, you save the money. Jalen Hurts did. He was the highest paid quarterback in the league for like 10 days. Then Lamar's contract came, right? And Lamar's was bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dax is going to be bigger. Like it's smart to do. The problem is it takes two to tango, Josh, right? Just because I want you to sign a team-friendly deal doesn't mean you want to sign a team-friendly deal, and the world spins on and on. So obviously, we would like to get DeVonta Smith's deal done. It will get done. He is not going to enter the fifth year of his deal without a contract. They're not going to let him walk. He's one of the better draft picks they've had in a very long time, especially at wide receiver. He's probably the best one they've had in a very long time. He'll be fine. He's probably just waiting to make sure he maximizes the cheddar. That way it's, generational wealth for many generations to come.
Yes, absolutely. As he should. It's well worth it. It's very
Sure.
well earned. And like we've said a number of times too, it's not only like what he does on the field, but it's off of it. Like, not every receiver, as we know, is like a DeVonta Smith. Like he, for the most part, keeps his head down and he's like, you know what? It's team ball. And like, that's how he's always been. So there's not an ounce. There's not a 0.01% chance in my mind that DeVonta Smith is in danger of, leaving the Eagles. He won't be here in Philly. Like they're not going to get this thing done. It is a priority in Howie Roseman's mind. But also, on the flip side, again, it's like, there's not a huge rush probably on Smitty's camp to say, well, let's get this thing done, because if he does happen to wait there, then all of a sudden, hey, those new wide receiver contracts that come in will help his case, because he can go out there, like you said, he can ask and say, well, hey, CeeDee Lamb got this, Justin Jefferson got this, even if it's not the exact same money, it'll be very close, and so it naturally will help his argument there on that side. So he'll get done. We can relax. Everybody can calm down on that side. It'll just be it could be in the next couple of weeks, it could be in the next couple of months, or it could be later. Realistically, I can't imagine that you're going to get into the season, or certainly after this coming season, because as we all know, Howie loves to get it done early. But yeah, I'm not concerned that we're going to be sitting here, doing one of these like during the season and be like, well, I don't know, Smitty hasn't signed yet for some reason. Like that could be a little bit concerning. So it'll be fine.
Well, and CeeDee Lamb is the one to worry about here. People talk about Justin Jefferson, and sure, like Jefferson's contract is going to reset the market, but Jefferson is better. He's the best wide receiver in the league. If you're taking straight wide receiver, no other factor involved, who's the best? It's Justin Jefferson. Tyreek Hill is very good. AJ Brown is absolutely fantastic. But if all of us had a gun to our head to take the best receiver in the league right now, I think 99 out of 100 of us would say Justin Jefferson. So he's going to get 30, maybe 31, 32, 33. Smitty doesn't need 30. He's not as good as Justin Jefferson. He's very good, but not Justin Jefferson. So you come down a little bit and you pay him like CeeDee Lamb, and then everyone's happy. So we'll wait and see exactly how that is going to go down. If you've not hit a thumbs up button, make sure you guys do that, as we have 142 likes. Got a bunch of people watching the show right now. We appreciate you guys. And if you have not joined our NFL Draft League, which is happening obviously during the NFL Draft, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be very, very simple. The person who predicts as close to possible, because it's possible to be 100% accurate, the first round of the NFL Draft via our Draft League is going to get the Eagle jersey of your choice, whether it's the first round draft picks or Saquon Barkley's or somebody else. Send a Venmo to @ThePhillySpecial. You see it on your screen right there. He'll give you the login code, and that gets you locked into the NFL Draft League, where it's a multiple choice where you can kind of decide, and it looks obviously like this, to see who goes number 1 overall. Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be Caleb Williams. Who do you think's number 2 overall, Josh? I'm going to pick Jaden Daniels. This is mine right here. I haven't made my picks yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I mean, it could be Drake May, but Washington and Jaden Daniels, is that a lock?
So I mean, I'll just share. I went Drake May, but it's
okay.
I could totally see Jaden Daniels. So honestly, that's the one where it's like it could automatically be wrong after the second pick, which is fine because, like you said, it's percentage based. But yeah,
right.
I almost considered keeping like one and just saying like who will be picked first and just putting 4 options of Caleb Williams, but just to make sure you have your options. You have your crazies out there who are going to say someone else. So we gave you some other options to choose from, but. I don't know. I feel like for some reason Drake May might slightly edge out there, but it wouldn't surprise me. It will be interesting, honestly, whoever that is, of like how many quarterbacks we're going to get in like the top 10, because we've talked about it a number of times. But the draft just gets better and better for the Eagles, and really, any non-quarterback needy team. The more quarterbacks that get drafted really early, because then the prospects that are not those positions keep getting pushed back there. So. It'll be fascinating on that side. Where are you at? I've kind of thought there's going to be. I think I could see like five in the top 10. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
5, yeah.
No, I don't think so. And I think this pick right here on your screen, 4, is going to be the real kicker here. I really think what's going to happen is you're going to see 1 Caleb Williams, 2 Jaden Daniels, 3 Drake May. Now Jaden Daniels, Drake May can flip flop, but those 3 are 1, 2, 3. 4, someone comes up. It's probably going to be either Denver, the Minnesota Vikings. You can throw in the Las Vegas Raiders, although they're a little bit more unlikely, and maybe you mix in like the New York Giants if they're really wanting to get crazy. And then they're going to take J.J. McCarthy. He'll be the 4th quarterback taken. Those 4 are all guaranteed inside the top 5, Josh. But you got to remember that Michael Penix had an incredible pro day. He's healthy. They love what they I mean, you look at the UT game. I mean, he was absolutely incredible. He's going to go in the first round, and there's going to be a team that comes up from the middle of round 2 into round 1 to get Bo Nix. I think you're going to see all of those. I think you're going to see 6 in the first round, and I think there's a very good chance for 5 inside the top 10. Teams need quarterbacks. What you learn in the National Football League over the past 10 years, if you don't have somebody who can go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl, you don't have somebody. And the Eagles had somebody to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I mean, come on, it was possible. You can make the argument that 49ers had somebody in Brock Purdy, although, Brock Purdy is still a little iffy in terms of how good of a quarterback he is, in my opinion. But you've got to have somebody who can go toe-to-toe. And if your quarterback was Spencer Rattler, or not, excuse me, what was the Falcon quarterback this past year? I just ruined my whole entire take. What was his name? Desmond Ridder. I don't know why I said Spencer Rattler. But if you had Desmond Ridder pre-Kirk Cousins, you knew you didn't have a quarterback. And there are a lot of teams with guys like Desmond Ridder who are going to take a quarterback this year. You see 5 in the first round, but probably really 6.
Yes. Yeah. And it'll make it better. So it will be interesting to see. But yeah, you're certainly right. You need your quarterback, and some teams pay too much, quite honestly. I mean, for your quarterback, it might be too early, but we'll see. It would make life easier. So as Xander here with a 2 super chat, appreciate that, says defensive line round 1, linebacker O-line round 2, or O-line round 1, and then cornerback linebacker round 2. So, all right. Either way,
let's see.
Kind of a consistent O-line linebacker.
And then defender. Yeah. They're going to take an offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds. They are. You as much as you don't want it, and we all hope it's in round 2, you get a little sexier pick in round 1. Just be ready for it. I mean, there's a very real chance that they just, boom, 22, O-line, and we all go, yay, that's so exciting. But then 5 years from now, it's like, yay, that was so exciting. Remember, the Lane Johnson pick at 4 was not very exciting. I mean, at all. But it was like, we need a tackle. And they got the tackle that was probably the best player in that entire draft. So, it happens. I jumped the gun here. Here's David Turn. Great show. Thoughts on round 2 picks? It's either offensive lineman or cornerback, whichever they don't get. Whichever they don't get, Josh. Offensive line or quarterback or cornerback. Take your pick. Or Adrian Cooper.
Yeah, I still keep saying that I think it's likely that it's going to be offensive line in the first round.
Yeah.
So if it is that, then I would say second round linebacker, and I mean, Howie just loved the trenches. So I could very realistically see offensive line and then linebacker and edge, or edge and linebacker, just keep it there. So that's what I would expect to happen. That's not my preference, as we've said for a number of times, but it's going to be interesting because, does Howie trade back? It doesn't end up not being 2 round 2 picks. Is he trying to get a little bit more draft capital? Because Daniel Jeremiah and many others have said this too. Like, if you need a wide receiver or you need a tackle, this is the best draft for it. So I've heard the argument of, well, hey, we could wait 1 year and get Lane's replacement, which is true, but still, like, it's great. And, conventional wisdom is like, hey, let's take advantage of some of the surplus if you don't have to overpay for what we know we're going to eventually need. And if tackle is this draft class, then I don't know, if certainly if you don't get it in the first round, I've got to imagine that you're going to sit there and do that in the second round. But that's where I keep coming back to of it's not the sexy pick, and I won't be just completely thrilled with it, but it'll make sense. And you say, well, hey, this is the tackle draft, and you go ahead and get one of those guys. Now, wide receiver is a different story. I don't think that we need to draft a player as early as a second round for receiver position, but tackle does make a whole lot of sense, especially when looking at this draft class.
88 SMC says Buffalo needs wide receiver in the first. Would you trade back? I wouldn't, but Howie might. And if Buffalo is willing to give you, I don't know, another second plus next year's second, I mean, the trade from a second to an early or a late first is a lot less than going to 10. So I think it's a possibility. Multiple teams. I mean, listen, the Chiefs need a wide receiver desperately now. You saw the Rashee Rice news. Whether that knocks him out of the league or it doesn't, who knows? But they definitely need a wide receiver. And Philly's in a good spot. If you love a wide receiver, if you gotta have Xavier Worthy, or you really love. What's the guy's name? There's the other Texas receiver and the other LSU receiver, and you pair in Keon Coleman. There are a lot of good receivers in this draft, as Josh just mentioned. This is the wide receiver draft, and you're going to see a bunch of good ones come out of this one. So if you want to come to 22 and get them, then you definitely have the ability to do so. What are your guys' dream draft picks? I think we both think the dream would be Quinyon Mitchell in terms of, like, if we could have anybody. I do think Jared Verse would be huge for Philadelphia. If somehow Dallas Turner fell, but we're talking like dream is likely, like a real possible dream instead of like Caleb Williams or, Marvin Harrison Jr. or one of the top picks overall. I think Jared Verse is going to be very, very good. And I really think you're going to see Quinyon Mitchell become one of the better cornerbacks in this league. Either one of those two guys, I think, are an absolute home run steal if Philadelphia could go ahead and get them. But there are a lot of good players in this draft. I mean, we talked about Nate Wiggins, talked about Cooper DeJean, we've talked about all the offensive linemen. Byron Murphy, the D tackle out of Texas, is incredible. I mean, he is really, really good, and him next to Jalen Carter with Jordan Davis would be hard to beat. There's a lot of good players in this draft, but there are every single year. We're always excited about like 5 guys when you're sitting there in the early 20s.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, without a doubt. Apparently, we've got Lane Johnson and Bryce Huff in the chat too. If that's actually
get back to work, Lane. Get back to work.
Evidently, if you guys would come on the show, that'd be fantastic. So, but no, I agree with you. There's lots of things here. Mr. Ethos says, acting like we can't get a tackle later. That's old BS, not working anymore. Like, okay, I get it. It's Jeff Stoutland. You can wait. But again, to the point of the surplus of this draft, it just does make a whole lot of sense. You take advantage of a first-round type talent. Not all of them are Jordan Mailata. Some of them are Lane Johnsons, so you just kind of balance that. But yeah, that's where I would lean towards. But I'm totally with you on the fact of who's the dream. If you could get Quinyon Mitchell, if he is available, you don't have to trade up too much, or somehow he keeps slipping further back to you, then that would be fantastic. Sean Robinson says Latu is the dream. That's fine. Hey, I get that. If you understand, or if you're looking for an edge or a pass rusher to replace, that makes some sense. I was also looking up a second ago. I don't believe that Rashee Rice has been terminated. I saw a comment about that.
No, he's not terminated. I think there's a warrant out.
I know
for
you
his
didn't
arrest.
say that. I saw a comment earlier. Someone said he had been terminated.
No,
I didn't
he's
see that
not
officially, but the Chiefs will take a receiver. That's
For
That's
sure.
especially with all things considered now. They're going to
For sure.
take a receiver
And
in this
and
draft.
it's the NFL that would choose to terminate Rashee Rice, right? Like in this situation, the Chiefs won't cut him. They will wait for the league to make their sort of ruling, which could be it'll probably be 4 to 8 games if I had to just guess based on my very limited knowledge of the situation, the alleged situation, if you will. But that's my guess in terms of what I would say in that situation and why we should appreciate having DeVonta Smith and AJ Brown, who seemingly are model citizens who are just there to play football. So, any Big Macs like DeVonta Smith loves his McDonald's. Absolutely loves them. Loves them.
That is unbelievable, honestly.
Loves
The
them.
fact that he can
No sleep,
perform
McDonald's.
as well as he can. I'm obviously not a professional athlete, so I can't relate in that sense, but I've got 2 kids, and so just the idea of trying to get myself out of bed and go to the gym and go do all these other things and play in a game while doing that on McDonald's diet does not even he's just different, and good for him that he can actually do that. But I can't quite fathom that type of world. So
I agree.
but that's why he's so great. That's why he's Smitty. He's the Slim Reaper.
Someone says I got Rice on my dynasty league. FML.
Ooh.
Yeah, that stinks. Bummer.
Yeah.
Bummer. Yeah. Have fun with that. Let's just go rapid fire here. Right at the top of the hour. I want to wrap up here pretty quickly. A couple more questions, then we're going to wrap things up. We'll be live, obviously, next week. Josh has a lot of live shows during the week as well, and a lot of normal shows as we do every single day. So make sure you guys subscribe. I'm almost at 47,000 subs. If you want to help me with 50 more, get to 47,000. I appreciate that too.
There you go. Yes,
subtle
absolutely.
Plug there. We're marching towards 50. Josh is well ahead at 50, almost 2, but we're trying to get to 50 here. So hit the sub button. We appreciate that.
You got
Kool-Aid
that.
McKinstry.
By the way,
Kool-Aid McKinstry.
I was going to mention real quick. I got the first official notification for the draft league. So Dustin Haygood, I got the 1. So I got you down in the draft league. And for anybody else that does, I will send you the link. So as soon as you do that. But Dustin, you were on the board. Appreciate that.
There you go. Drop a Venmo to Josh, get into the draft league, and the winner is going to get an Eagles jersey of their choice in terms of and it's the new jersey style too, unless you want the Kelly green that's on your screen right now.
It's true. Yes, the watermark on that side. I'm not really a fan yet. I'm still trying to.
I'm not either.
It's different. I don't know that it goes fully yet. It'll probably grow on me. I'll be like, it's fine. But right now, it's strange.
Kool-Aid McKinstry's name is mocked a lot. We don't talk about him a lot. I like the guy. I think that the injury he was cleared of today, but it's obviously weighed in on his draft stock a little bit there. I just think there are probably better secondary pieces if you had to pick. So. I don't hate the idea, and he's an option if you want to stay put at number 22 overall, but it is what it is.
Yeah, he's a possibility. I think, I don't know. We again, the easy answer or the easy, selection there as far as cornerback goes to Quinton Mitchell. But I think if you had the option between the two, certainly at 22 and you're waiting, then I think Wiggins from Clemson would be the preferred preference there. But yeah, I've seen that as a potential in some mock drafts. Cooper DeJean, the Cooper draft I've seen a number of those of people posting on Twitter, but you go Cooper DeJean, then you go Edgerrin Cooper, and then you go Cooper Beebe. I wouldn't mind that either. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, there's a lot of different options as far as on that side. We haven't talked about it actually, and I just saw Pete's comment here.
Too.
But
yeah,
the week 1, really quickly, it's Brazil.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm actually really bummed about this, quite honestly, because it was a lock. I texted you way back when, I'm like, hey, if Packers are in Philly, we're going to go because Sandy, Cheesehead and all that other stuff. Like, it just makes perfect sense. We're going to go to that game. And Brazil, I mean, come on. Really? Like, it does.
I know.
I understand, people say like, well, this is the price you pay for a contender or for a team that's really good and going to get a lot of views and everything else. The NFL trying to expand and all that other stuff. But the Browns made so much more sense to me than the Packers. I mean, it's just, you could have an NFC potential, like early possibility for NFC championship rematch, but like have those two teams playing in Philly on a Sunday night football, I'd imagine, or Monday night football, be primetime game. And you're going to get tons of eyes on a Brazil game on Friday night anyway, just because it's unusual and it's in Brazil and it's like, oh, hey, who's it going to be? So, I don't know. I have a stake in it, obviously, because I really wanted to go to that game in Philly. But nonetheless, week 1 is Friday night. You have to have Peacock subscription, unless for those, Philly local, you'll get the channel. But if you're not, then and you don't want to pay for the Peacock subscription, Thomas and I will be live. We'll be streaming
live.
it. You can hang out with us, and you don't have to pay for the subscription. So there you go.
There you go. I agree. Games that big you want at home, and it's not going to be at home. And the Packers have a very large contingent in Brazil, so it could be more of a Packers home game, but it is what it is. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap it up here on a Wednesday Link Live. As always, we do it every single Wednesday night. Next Wednesday will be 2 Wednesdays before the NFL draft, because we'll do one on Wednesday and the draft will be Thursday. So make sure you guys subscribe and get ready for that. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us and get in on our NFL draft league. So shoot a Venmo to Josh. He'll send you the link, get you into our draft league where the winner is going to go ahead and get an Eagles jersey of their choice. We'll talk more about that on our shows as well. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We sign off. We'll see you guys in the next one.
We'll see you. Go Birds.